this is Erica Hernandez reporting outside in Sutherland Springs. Possible mass casualty seen here in Sutherland Springs at the First Baptist Church. There is, neighbors are reporting that a gunman went into the church and opened fire.
Well, that's right. We were the first media crew on the scene, and the first thing that we saw was just lines of family and friends waiting to see if their loved ones were one of the 27 killed or some of those more than 30 injured. There were tears, people on their knees actually praying just feet from the church, just still waiting for that information if their loved one was going to be okay.
Now, Garrett Brnger is here with me now, who also spoke with someone who had something, who pursued the suspect.
Absolutely. So you talked about some of the neighbors who went after him. One of them was actually a man driving by. So now people are over here at the community building waiting to hear about loved ones, but so is one woman who says her boyfriend helped chase down the shooter.
We just got through reporting about Las Vegas not too long ago, and now to deal with this here, neighbors are definitely shooken up. Another neighbor that I spoke to was outside changing the oil in his car when he heard gunshots and said when he fired toward his house, it hit one of his windows. Luckily, it shot higher than where his kid was sitting watching TV. So, I mean, these neighbors are definitely shooken up here, and it's going to be a long time before they could ever get over anything like this.
Well, that's just a small clip of the reporting from 3 of KSAT's own, who were the first to arrive to Sutherland Springs a little more than 3 weeks ago.
The day started with a few viewers writing us on Facebook hearing rumors of a shooting, but upon arrival quickly turned in one of the most tragic stories to hit our area. Erica Hernandez, Massey, and Garrett Brnger join us in studio today to talk more about covering a story of this magnitude.
Yeah, it's a difficult discussion, but it's an important one to have. Now, Erica, let's begin with you. You were the first one on the scene. How did you hear about it, and when you arrived, what did you see?
I was actually, Wilson County's home to me. I grew up in Wilson County. I was visiting family, having breakfast with my parents that morning. My mom is a first responder in the county, so as we were finishing breakfast, her scanners started going off.
Oh, my.
So the first, I guess, tone that went out was that it was just for a shooting, and it just called for one ambulance. And literally minutes later, I mean, I grew up with a scanner in my house, so hearing them say all units now in Sutherland Springs, we kind of all stopped and looked at each other like, okay, something big is going on.
Sure. And I'm sure by that point you're hoping, well, one, I got to go, but you're hoping, I hope this isn't true. I hope this isn't what it sounds like it could be.
I think at that point I still didn't realize the magnitude of what it was. My mom was out the door faster than even the tones finished.
Did you leave right that minute?
I left about a good 3 minutes after her because I kind of sat there, was like, is this what's happening? Because it wasn't a lot of scanner talk at that point. So I looked at my fiance and my dad's like, I think I'm going to go, even if it's something small. But our crews are in San Antonio. I'm about 15 minutes away from it because everything's about 15 minutes to Sutherland Springs. And so I just went, and when I pulled up and noticed that it was a church, it just kind of hit me.
Were emergency crews already there when you got there?
Some were still arriving. Air Life still hadn't arrived at that point. But by about another 10 minutes after that, it was about 6 Air Lives that just started landing one after another.
It had to be hard to see, and I know you're getting emotional already talking about that. And we'll come back to that. We want to circle back to how this has affected you guys. Max, you were second on scene. What happened when you got there? Because so much of this story, even Garrett, when you were arriving, so much of this story was still unfolding minute by minute.
Well, we got emails that there was a shooting. We headed up there. It was actually Erica trying to keep us in the loop. And then once we got there, the first thing we saw, people lining the streets, cars and family members, waiting, trying to figure out what exactly was happening and if the people that they dropped off that morning were even alive. I mean, for a lot of these families, it started off as a regular Sunday. You drop your daughter, your sister, any family or friend off at church, just like any other Sunday. And the next thing you know, you get that text, or you get that notification, or you get that phone call, and you go to church and you sit outside because no one was allowed in. Right. So you sit there, and I spoke with one woman who immediately started crying. Her daughter and son got out of the car. They had another sibling who was in the church, and they all closed their eyes and started praying together. And
do we know about that sibling? Was she one of the victims?
We don't
know. We aren't sure. Garrett, let's move on to you. As reporters and in the news business, it's unfortunate that's part of our job is to bring that story. Have you ever covered anything like that, and how was that emotionally for you as a reporter?
Yes, I was actually at the Boston Marathon bombing,
So that's where I started my career in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And so went down to Boston. And I remember just the scene there. It was surreal. I went to college in Boston, so it was familiar, the whole area where everything was sealed off, and watching Copley Plaza just be dead. I mean, there was no one there. You're watching from the tape as police comb through, and also just being down there and seeing the devastation. But this was different. Boston's a huge city. Sutherland Springs, by day 2, members of the media outnumbered people in the community easily. I mean, we were parked up and down the streets, and anywhere you turn on both sides of the scene, the whole block was sealed off, and there were trucks, vans, and reporters everywhere.
I want to ask all three of you guys, because in a way, journalists are kind of like first responders, is that we have a job to do, and we focus on that process. And it usually isn't till later, or maybe till we get home, or a couple days later, that it finally hits us what we've been covering. Talk a little bit about that real quick, beginning with you, Erica, about when it actually hit for you, what you were absorbing, what had happened, what became a national story.
Yeah, it was, I mean, as much as I tried to, afterwards, that week, or, just to disconnect, I still couldn't. This was home for me. My family was, I had friends that had family members in that church. My mom was personally affected as being one of the first responders on the scene. So it was something that I couldn't get away from, even as much as I tried. So even till this day, it's still a process. And it's still something that I have to go home to and discuss. And luckily, KSAT's been great here. And everybody's been real friendly and always, there for somebody to talk to.
You make me cry.
I'm sorry.
And just so you guys know at home, our company is a wonderful company. They've even provided counselors for our staff here at the station that wanted to talk about this or wanted to meet privately.
Well, let's talk to each of you too, Max. How was this emotionally for you when it all sank in, what you'd covered?
I mean, it really didn't hit me till the next day when I talked to family and friends, and you realize, you grow up your whole life, you go to weekend services. And it's just, you think of religious places as sanctuary.
Right.
It's a safe place. And it hits you. It's, between this and the concert in Las Vegas, you just have to look around and say, at this point in life, you just can almost not feel safe anywhere. And then the FBI came out the next day and said, churches should be prepared for this. They should go through, they should go through the proper protocol and have procedures in place. And that was just startling to me that it's like, that's where we are. Yeah, startling, I think, to everyone, for sure, Max. We've got about a minute left, guys. Garrett, talk to us about when it finally sunk in, what you had seen and heard that day.
About a week later, we were back at the scene. I mean, it'd been a full week of going back. Unlike Max and Erica, I didn't get close to the original scene. By the time we got there, they had it all blocked off. Mostly I was dealing with the aftermath, and the first day was trying to find one of the men who had chased down the shooter. But
how tough is it to interview the people? How to ask those questions?
There's a balance there.
You put kitty gloves on, because basically nobody's story is so important that you need to emotionally traumatize them over it. So when you interview someone, you always recognize that this is the worst thing that probably is ever going to happen to them. I hope to God it's the worst thing that ever happens to these folks. And you just need, we're people first. You're a human being first, you're a reporter second, and there's no compelling information that you're going to get from that interview that is worth being a jerk.
I commend all three of you and the entire staff here, the way that it was covered with such dignity and with grace, because we have to remember their hearts too.
And Erica, you wanted to wrap up this segment?
Yeah, so there was an article, it was a letter to the Wilson County newspaper written by Rachel Howe, who is from Sutherland Springs, lives there, and it's kind of telling just how the community is holding themselves together right now and just how strong they are. And I wanted to read the last paragraph of her package. It says, because that's who we are, that is Sutherland Springs. We are not victims, we are survivors. We are faithful, we are family. We are more than the media understands, more than the pathetic celebrities pushing their selfish agendas will ever fathom. We are strong, and we'll pull through this. Don't remember us for the killer's evil. Remember us for who we are, the family of Sutherland Springs.
It's so powerful. It is so powerful. And our hearts go out to you. And again, kudos to you guys on covering it.
You did a great
Can't be
job,
easy.
and I know this affected all of you, but and I'm glad you guys mentioned you are people too, and this affects us all in different ways.
Yep.
Thank you for coming
you.
in today, sharing your stories.